Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third meeting of the Corporate Services Committee. It being 12 p.m. and we have quorum, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll begin by acknowledging that the City of London is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Pewak, and Attawandaron peoples. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. The City of London is currently home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people today. And as representatives of the people of the City of London, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. I will also share that the City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for meetings upon request. To make a specific request to this meeting, please contact csc@london.ca or phone 519-661-2489, extension 2425. And colleagues, I will look first for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. I have been asked to have 2.4, the declare surplus city-owned property at 641 Queens Ave to be dealt with separately. I've not been made aware of any other items that individuals wish to deal with separately, so I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder for the balance of the consent agenda, 2.1 through 2.3. Once that's on the floor, we can have any questions of staff. Moved by Councillor McAllister, seconded by Councillor Ferreira. So 2.1 to 2.3 are on the floor. We're looking for any questions or comments. I see none, so bear with us for just a moment and we'll get the, Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, and through the chair. My question is regarding the external auditor and the fact that the awarding of this contract is will be almost 30 years with KPMG. And if I'm reading this right, the RFP went out October the 6th for the 2022 financial statements. Is that correct?
And we'll look to Ms. Barbone to confirm that.
Through the chair, the RFP was completed and the award finalized in October. The RFP was issued prior to that.
Thank you, Ms. Barbone. Ms. Stevenson? Councillor Stevenson, sorry.
Thank you. May I just ask what month the RFP goes out?
And we'll look to staff to confirm that.
Through the chair, it went out at the tail end of September and was on the street or on the market for the legislated 3-week period.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson?
Yeah, just would just love some comments around having an external auditor for so long and the timing of the RFP to allow realistically an audit firm to take on this volume of work in such a quick turnaround, because to put it out in late September for the audit of the following spring, I'm just wondering if there's been any thoughts around that.
I'm not sure if staff can offer any further comment. It is the legislated required period for the RFP, but I will look to Ms. Barbone to see if she's got some additional comment on that.
Thank you, through the chair. So initially, so typically in the past, we have tried to get the audit out during the summertime. We were a little bit delayed with all the various things that were happening with respect to returning back to work, et cetera. But what I would offer is that the last time we went, previous to this RFP, there were still only 2 proponents that bid. So this has been, we're starting to see a trend here where there has not been a significant number of bidders vying for the City of London's RFP that were even there to evaluate through the RFP review process. So I'm not entirely surprised that it was all that different. We had reached out to a number of firms as well that had been actually very anxious to put forward and then did not ultimately submit a bid. So we had been in contact, and people were aware that it was coming and that the audit was up. We're a little disappointed there weren't more choice, but certainly I think the next time around we will be looking to try to get some advance notice out to others and try a different communication strategy to see if that might broaden the pool perhaps to evaluate for the next RFP.
Thank you for that.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Bargone. Councillor Trussow.
Thank you. Through the chair, some questions on 2.3. And I'm sorry I didn't have enough time to get these to you in advance, but I think there's, anyway, I'll ask them. I'm curious about the fact that we're still using 2016 market values in this report. And I would imagine there's been quite a shift in market values since 2016. To what extent does this potentially skew our ability to keep up with the value of properties?
And Ms. Bargone.
Thank you through the chair. I'll start, and if Mr. Collins or Mr. McMillan would like to add, I'll ask them to jump in. So the 2016 valuation date is established by the province through the last reassessment. So from a reassessment, new properties obviously get added to as they're built or demolished or changed, et cetera. But one of the things that we do note is that all things being equal, the properties are still staying at their value that is assessed at the 2016 amount. We are waiting for the province's plan as to when they would like to proceed with the reassessment, and we're hopeful that in the next few months we might get a little bit more information, but we're waiting for the province to make that decision. All things being equal, with a reassessment, the largest, if all things were to go up equally, then from a tax rate perspective, there isn't a significant shift. However, if one class goes up significantly more than another class, as an example, that's where you might start to see shifts between various classes that might occur, which is where some of the tax policy considerations come in. So we will be having a tax policy report that will be coming to give a lot of education as to what is going to happen and what it'll start to look like in preparation for council to set the tax policy in April once we receive the remaining regulations from the province. So it is behind, but I think it's very challenging for us with the information we have at this point to understand what the impact of a reassessment is going to be until we see what those current values are and if there are significant shifts from one class to another. It's a little bit difficult for us to tell. I don't know if, it looks like Mr. McMillan may want to add to that.
Thank you. Through the chair. Originally the schedule is normally every 4 years it's reassessed. So holding to that schedule, we would have seen a reassessment in 2020 and then phase-in starting in 2021. The pandemic impacted that. The province decided to put a pause on reassessment. And yes, there will be a change once they decide. And we did get an update on property tax decisions for 2023 in December from the province. And in that document, they did not address reassessment. So we still don't have a firm schedule for when that will resume.
Thank you. That's a pretty fulsome answer. Councillor Trussow, did you have a
Just to continue
follow-up?
through the chair, I guess a lot of my criticism here is directed at the province. Certainly not you or your staff, but I think we're really being disadvantaged here because I see from other jurisdictions the devastating effect that not being able to keep up with valuation growth can have on a municipality's ability to provide public services. And I just think at some point, is there some imputed measure that we might apply short of provincial permission? Or do we have any sense currently whether there are going to be significant differences between residential property and industrial? Because I certainly don't want to see this, I don't want to see this prejudice particular classes of taxpayers any more than I think it already does.
Thank
my
you,
last
Councillor
question.
Trossau. I'm not sure, I think I heard a question in there about do we have any indication of some potential valuation changes? I don't know if Ms. Barbone wants to, I know it would be speculative at best, so I don't know if you want to comment on that or not, but I'll see if you have anything to share with us on that.
I can confirm through the chair that we don't have a sense. The values are provided to us by MPAC. So that information is not assessed by the City of London staff. So we're really not sure. I mean, all things equal, that, you know, if there is a reassessment and things go up equally, that doesn't disadvantage the taxpayer because it ultimately, whatever the tax base is still collecting the same amount of taxes as set ultimately through the budget process.
Thank you for that. And I'll look to see if there's any further questions on the consent. Councillor Ferreira.
And thank you, through the chair. I do actually have some questions I thought I might as well ask while we're here. I'm sorry I didn't send it to you in advance, but I feel like you probably be able to answer them off the top of your head. So Ms. Barbone, you did say that if we were to have an assessment across all assets as they increase, because we really are paying for the cost of the cost of services and utilities coming to the resident or to the building, we would adjust our tax rate to make sure that we still are paying that absolute value of cost regardless of if the property assessment has gone up. So I wanted to know, with the phase-in approach, how does that fit in? Because, you know, I see with the phase-in approach, if we have an assessment, you know, like the assessment of all the properties go up, and then we have that 4-year phase-in approach, the way that breaks down, at what point would we adjust the tax rate to accommodate for that so we can still charge for the same amount of services?
Ms. Barbone, did you want to respond or have a member of your team respond to that?
Thank you for the question through the chair. The overall assessment is divided based on different property values, and the ultimate result is that the tax levy is set in the budget, and that's the amount that is raised. So, for example, if every property on average goes up 30% in value at the next reassessment, then if your property also goes up at 30%, the assessment won't have an impact due to assessment. If your value goes up higher than 30%, then you'll have an increase related to assessment. If it goes up less than 30%, then you would have an increase less than the average due to reassessment. In terms of a phase-in, they do that so that it's not a big jump all at once. So it's equal phase-ins over 4 years on any increase. But again, as long as your property goes up the same as the average, that won't have an impact on your tax bill.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ferreira, does that answer your question?
Thanks, through the chair. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? We've got no one else from committee with their hand up right now, so we'll go to Councillor Pribble.
Just a comment, and again, I'm not on this committee, but I just want to let you know in terms of the 2016, when the reassessment was done, certainly for the businesses, the taxes increased, maybe drastically might be quite a strong word, but they really did increase because it was above the 30%. And certainly the business community is very happy currently that the provincial government didn't introduce reassessment and it's delayed, because based on the property values, we think that our business community feels that it will be another hefty increase, and especially for the downtown properties. So just to make a comment, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pribble. And while you didn't ask that question, I think if committee will indulge me through the chair, perhaps Ms. Barbone, could you or a member of your team provide an update for us very, very briefly on the provincial uploading of the education tax portion that commercial properties were paying and how that may offset. I know that Mayor Morgan did a lot of work on that with your team in the last term, and I'm just wondering if this might be an appropriate place to provide a very short update on how that is proceeding.
To the chair, just to clarify the question, the provincial uploading of education, are you referring to the change in the business education tax that occurred in 2021? So that was a aggregate benefit of approximately 21 million to London business owners, whereas the business education tax was reduced from 1.88 approximately to 0.88%. So that also affected the new construction class, which had been implemented to provide a benefit to new construction businesses, so that now everyone is paying the same education rate as a business. And that will continue into 2023 as well.
Great, thank you for that. I just thought it was important to highlight that change is coming along as well. Councillor Purgle?
Just adding a comment, this was a fantastic initiative and the business community of London is greatly appreciating it. Thank you.
All right, I have no other speakers on my list. So going once, going twice, we are going to call the question. We'll get the clerk to open the vote for that.
Closing the vote, the motion is passed 5-0.
Thank you, colleagues. That leaves us 2.4 in the consent agenda. Councillor Trussell, you asked for this to be pulled to be dealt with separately. So I will start with you. I just want to remind colleagues, we don't have a motion on the floor at the moment. I will entertain some general discussion, but at some point, after everyone's had one opportunity to speak, I'll look for a motion before we continue any sort of debate on this item. So Councillor Trussell, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Warner. Is he? Hi. We had a nice conversation this morning, and I threw out a lot of my questions about this process in general and about this property in particular. And I think I have a much better understanding of the situation. I did have some concerns about passing this today because of the sensitivity of exactly where this is located, and the fact that just based on my own observation, there have been activities in that immediate area that are directly relevant to homeless issues and encampment issues and the use of that parking lot and some of the adjacent spaces. My understanding from Mr. Warner is, and just any time, just correct me if I'm wrong, is that the is that the internal property inquiry liaison report was sent out in due course to a variety of different departments and other agencies like London Hydro and Upper Thames. And you were kind enough to provide me with that report. I did see that it was going to London staff in a variety of different parts of our civic administration, including that under Mr. Mathers, as well as others. I was concerned that, and it's probably a problem with our bylaw or regulations, that the request for, do you have ideas about how this property could be used, was not also shared with the broader agency community, given the partnerships that the city has with a variety of service providers in that area. So I feel as if I want to get some more information about whether other community associations who are working in this area might have some ideas about what we can do with this parcel. I understand that this parcel is not big enough to act as a standalone construction site, but I'm wondering if it might be, given its past use on behalf of a community association, whether there might be some continuation of that. Am I correct so far in terms of my understanding? Through the chair.
I will look first to Mr. Warner to see if he can confirm the understanding of the process. Mr. Warner?
Thank you, and through the chair, yes, the councilor's communications are correct. This is a small, unviable or non-viable parcel of land that was being used as a volunteer tree nursery. The association, the Old East Association, has not got the volunteers. They have other priorities now, so they haven't been interested in caring for this portion of land. There has been some issues associated with trespass and encampment. It is fenced, although it is difficult to enforce that. So the thought was that if council wished to declare it surplus, then an adjoining property owner may want to acquire it. We're not sure there's any other viability, but if the council would like, we can still reach out and do another pass on the community to see if there is another use for it. It will have to meet the zoning bylaw provisions, regulations, and so at this stage, I'm not aware of any other particular use. Thank you.
May I continue through the chair? Could you elaborate on the encampment trespass issues that were present on this property?
I think we'll go to Mr. Dickens for that one.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Some of the issues that have been reported and have been difficult to manage include the space itself being difficult to access. So there's frequently a number of individuals make their way through that fenced-in area and use that space for a number of activities. Often leaving behind large amounts of garbage, sometimes syringes, things like that. So it becomes very, very difficult for outreach workers to actually access that space and support people. It is causing conflict with neighboring property owners, as it does abut some of the other properties in that area. And it has become an area where we've frequently had to call for bylaw support or police support due to some of the darkened areas, the poor visibility, and also some of the incidents between individuals that have occurred in that secluded area. So it's becoming a really difficult challenge to properly support people in that space. That space was not intended for the uses that are occurring in that area, and it is causing a number of conflicts with local businesses, residents, and is becoming a safety concern for outreach workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dickens. Councillor Tressau?
Thank you. In which case, I would like to seek a little bit more information before moving on this, particularly with respect to other non-city agencies, non-public agencies, but nonprofit community agencies that we are working with, and circulate the request again. So I'm going to move that this be deferred back to staff for that information and put it on our next agenda if possible.
Okay, so I'm hearing a referral motion from you, Councillor. I think before we seek a seconder, I do want to ask through staff if for recirculation, the next agenda is even a viable option, or what the runway staff might require to do that is required. So I first think we'll go to Mr. Warner to see what kind of a time frame he would need for recirculation. And perhaps, Mr. Warner, I'll ask you to elaborate for the committee as well what the next step processes would be should the committee actually declare the land surplus. Like so we've got a motion to refer and recirculate. So first, what would the timeline be for a recirculation for you? If it is not recirculated, though, what are the next steps in I think for committee's benefit, because I don't think we've dealt with, the new committee has dealt with a declaration of surplus before. When land is declared surplus, could you outline the next steps that Realty Services takes?
Yes, through the chair. Circulation, to go out to the other non-city agencies, I would expect we could do that within 30 days. So if we don't hit the next committee cycle, probably the one after that, I don't see this as an urgent matter from that perspective. As far as the process, the council has a sale and other disposition of land process, and the first step in that process is to do the pillar or property inquiry. We can broaden that with the recommendation from Councillor Trasso. If the council wanted to proceed with declaring it surplus, then there would be a publication in a local newspaper to indicate that effect, and then we would look at a sale of the property based on the sale and other disposition of land policy. As I indicated earlier, it's not a viable parcel of land, so it's not likely there's a market for it. However, there are adjacent residential properties who may have an interest in having that as an extension to their backyard. So we would negotiate a fair market price for that. If there is a non-city agency that has an interest in it and would like to purchase it from the city, then that would be to this council's avail as well. Thank you.
Thank you for outlining that for us. So we have a suggestion for a referral that's been put on the floor. We need a seconder for that, if there is one. Councillor Ferreira. Okay, so debate on the referral only. Councillor Stevenson.
Can staff maybe just elaborate what the possible benefit would be to doing the referral? Because it seems to me that the social service agencies being referred to have the option, just like anyone else, to respond to the surplus property public announcement.
I will look to our staff. I'm not sure if Mr. Warner wants to respond to this one or if there's another staff member. I know when we're talking about outreach to other agencies, this may not be necessarily Mr. Warner's area of expertise. So, and I see some conferring going on, so give us one moment, Councillor.
Thank you, through the chair. At this perspective, we haven't obviously heard from the other agencies, but I'm not sure what kind of use they could make of this parcel of land. It's very small, and I'm really struggling with what that might be, but like I say, we're more than willing to try to see if there is other views on how to use it within the compliance of the land use permissions.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you for that. It seems to me that if it's been a area of concern for businesses and residents in that area, giving them the option to purchase that and alleviate some of those concerns makes sense to me. It is in my ward, and I don't see that going ahead with declaring it surplus prohibits other options or ideas coming forward. So I'll be voting against this.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Pribble, and then we'll go to Councillor Ferreira.
Just a comment to support what Mr. Dickens said. I'm very familiar with this area, and just during the past, I would say 6 to 8 months, I personally experienced 2 incidents there that certainly I don't think there would be a great benefit. And I see the challenges for City of London to control this, and I just want to confirm what Mr. Dickens said. 100% agree with his statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pribble. Sorry, Councillor Ferreira, I'd seen Councillor Pribble's hand up first. I try to go to committee members first, but we'll go to you now.
No, that's okay. And through you, like for the referral, I was just wondering if we could just get some like real clarity on it. Just I'm not like considering the size of the parcel of land, it is very small. I think I read like 1,400 square feet or something like that. So I don't really see too many uses for it. But I'm still kind of, I don't really know what other possibilities that this land could be used for. So this is why I would be seconding the referral. But on top of that, I do see there's many stakeholders in the area, and I'm pretty sure it backs onto, I think it was like 251 or 651 Queens. It backs onto that yard. So I was just wondering, And I do know that if we were to put it out, we would look into the options of maybe those residents who are interested in that land. So is there anything to do with maybe like a first right of refusal of people who are in closest vicinity to that land that would be able to have first, like dibs, first take on the land, just because it is so close to their residents, specifically that one residence, I think it was 651 Queens, that's backing right onto it? Thank you.
Mr. Warner?
Thank you. Through the chair, there's no legal right to a first option by an adjacent property owner, but from a practical perspective, we typically do approach the adjoining property owners, and if there is a interest by those who are abutting the property, then we definitely look to do an agreement of purchase and sale with that owner, and we derive the fair market value as value and contribution to their property.
Councillor Ferreira?
And thank you, and through you. Okay, so just, and just one last question, just to clarify everything. So this referral would include that option as well, and along with the other options that Councillor Trosso was looking into?
Mr. Warner?
Through the chair, if the referral was to be passed, we would look to approach the non-city related agencies, including the Old East Village Association again, and see if there's an interest to have ownership of the parcel, of the asset. I think what we're recommending is the municipality does not have an interest in that particular asset, and we're looking to declare a surplus to dispose of it. And if there is no other interest, we could definitely then go to the next step and talk to the adjoining property owner.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Good, Councillor Ferreira? Okay. Councillor Stevenson?
Yeah, just one last question on this. I'm wondering what stops us from getting that information that Councillor Trosso is asking for before it goes to council, that we could go ahead and put this motion forward based on what the recommendations are from city staff, and then find out between now and council if there's some reason to refer this back.
Well, let's ask Mr. Warner if more information would be possible before the council meeting.
Yes, through the chair, we can make best efforts to contact by phone, email, all of the related associations. Mr. Dickens here will help me with a list of contacts, and we'll do a reach out as quickly as we can, see what we can bring back to council.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Councillor Stevenson?
Just to be clear, I wasn't looking to put that burden on staff, but just thinking that there is enough time for whoever else to come forward and ask between now and council, right? There is that space. So I wasn't really asking staff to take on that responsibility, just to be clear.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. I've got Councillor Trosso, and then I've got myself on the speaker's list as well. Councillor Trosso.
Yes, well, we most certainly are asking staff to do a little bit of extra work, and I think it's a reasonable request given the current environment that we're in. I think the circumstances have changed quite a bit in terms of our understanding of our rights and obligations and the situation on the ground since even these documents were sent out. I guess my question through the chair is there some urgency to this that it just can't wait for the next set of meetings, that there will be prejudice in a substantial way? I don't see what the rush is. We really need to do this right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trosso. Ms. Livingston, please.
Through you, Chair, we'll do it in the timeframe that council would like it done in. So certainly we can bring it forward to the next cycle of meetings. I was conferring with Mr. Warner if trying to do the work between now and council was possible. And of course, everything is possible. It means other things are moved to the side. So I'm just trying to understand council's direction on whether you wish us to take the normal steps, do the 30 days that Mr. Warner suggested and report to the cycle after that, or if you are wishing to have information provided by council, which is 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, Ms. Livingston, and we may look for some clarification on that before we call the vote. Because certainly I know staff will do whatever they can to follow our direction. We should also be cognizant as a committee, though, that when we ask staff to do that, projects that they have open on their desk right now go to the side. So now, Councillor Trosso has a motion on the floor. So although he is the vice chair, I'm going to ask, because he has not spoken to this, And it's not his motion, or he hasn't seconded it, so I'm going to ask Councillor McAllister to take the chair. I have myself on the list and then Councillor Stevenson following me.
I have the chair, and Deputy Mayor Lewis, you are next on the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister. So my first question to our staff, this would be, to me, a little bit different in terms of our normal process if we referred this with direction to reach out to community agencies. And I realize I may be treading on a question that may invoke our city solicitor to recommend we go in camera, but I'll see if he can answer it in public session first. Would referring this with that sort of direction create any sort of precedent or prejudice in the potential sale of the land in the future that we need to be aware of in terms of any legal considerations?
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. I can't hear the proceedings at the moment.
I was asking Mr. Card if there was any concern from the city solicitor's office that a referral to seek feedback from community agencies about the viability of this land for them or their uses would cause, would set any sort of precedent or concern about prejudice if we do move ahead with the sale of the land as surplus, if we go back and ask specific organizations first if they have an interest in it.
Okay, the direct answer to that question, Mr. Chairman, is that I have only moderate concerns, and those have to do with the contradiction between the suggested process and the policy with respect to how we deal with declaring property surplus and disposing of it. However, it appears from the previous debate that the intention, particularly as spoken to by Councillor Stevenson, is that we would declare the property surplus and invite further submissions before any decision is made with respect to disposition. So it is still entirely possible that the disposition could be in accordance with our policy. So having said that, I don't think that while the intended procedure is a departure from our usual procedure, I don't think that it would bind us in future situations, because if the council feels that it's worthwhile to take a different approach in this case, that alternative is always open.
Thank you, Mr. Card. Is there a follow-up, Deputy Mayor Lewis?
Yes, so I'm just going to share with colleagues. First of all, I think we need to tighten this motion up a bit if we're going to support it. That said, I'm struggling with why we would refer this back specifically to seek outside agencies' interest if we're potentially putting the property on the market in the first place. I think Councillor Stevenson raises an excellent point that adjacent agencies or property owners, be they residential or social agencies or anyone else, would still have a fair opportunity to seek the land once our staff have declared it surplus and gone through the property inquiry process. I also hear and have concerns when I hear Mr. Dickens talk about the difficulty of outreach workers even going to this property and the challenges that they encounter there. And so I am concerned from a community safety perspective that we would ask agencies to consider using it for some sort of social service provision. So I will say that from a personal perspective, I'm not inclined to support the referral at this point, but I do think whether Councillor Trussow has an interest in some specific language around timing and tightness of the distribution, or whether another councillor has some thoughts on tightening this motion up if it were to pass. I think we need a little more direction to staff than we have in this motion right now. But I am mindful of the fact that outside organizations would still have an opportunity to acquire this property if we follow our standard process. I am heartened to hear Mr. Card's response that the concerns from a legal perspective are moderate. But I do get concerned when we start to deviate too much from our existing policies without a fulsome debate around what those policies should be perhaps amended to moving forward. So I'm going to continue to listen to what colleagues have to say, but I'm not convinced yet that a referral is in the best interests of anyone at this time.
I will hand the chair back to you, Deputy Mayor Lewis, and you have Councillors Stevenson and Trusso on deck. Thank you.
Darn, I was hoping you were going to keep the chair and go to the next speaker, but I'll take the chair back and I will go to Councillor Stevenson next, and noting that we've got Councillor Trusso on the list after her. Okay, sorry about that. We will take Councillor Stevenson off the list. We'll go back to Councillor Trusso.
In terms of the timing, through the chair, of course, I would leave that to the staff. If you think you can do it in 2 weeks, that's fine. But it does seem to me is if we are going to show the agencies that we're partnering with, and my guess is our partnership activities with them are going to be increased quite a bit over the next period of time, I would like to give them the same ability to comment on this that we gave to London Hydro, for example, because this is not just a technical issue. It may be that there are no ideas, but I would like to give them the opportunity. As to the question of whether or not they could compete on an equal basis as nonprofits with on the private market, I'm sorry, that's terrible. I got to turn this off. Excuse me. In terms of whether they can compete on the private market, I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can't. It might be that there would be some idea about leasing the property with certain conditions. I don't know, because we haven't even asked them. As far as they're concerned, unless they've looked at the Corporate Services Committee calendar for this week, I'm not sure they would even know about it. And I want to give them that opportunity. And it might be that there is some joint operation that the city might want to keep the property and lease it to them, or have some other type of arrangement that does not fall within the parameters of the real estate market, wherein they can make competitive bids. And I would like to give them the opportunity to do that. And under the current circumstances, I don't think giving this sort of courtesy and opportunity to our partner agencies is really disrupting the process too much or asking too much. So in terms of clarification on my amendment, I would like to leave it open to staff in terms of when they would be able to respond. Maybe they can make a few phone calls and respond right away. Mr. Dickens knows who the non-public actors are who I'm talking about, and it may be creating a fuss over nothing, and that could be dealt with a few phone calls. But so I'm going to leave that part open. But I don't think my concerns are addressed by simply saying, well, any of the nonprofit agencies or neighborhood associations can compete on the market if this goes to open bid. So I would like to proceed with my motion, and I would request my colleagues here to give me that indulgence and support that. I don't think there's a lot of prejudice. I think whatever immediate public safety issues are there are going to be addressed by trying to secure the lot as much as possible. And I'm not suggesting that it be opened right away to all sorts of things, but I feel that before this council declares property as surplus in today's environment, we need to be diligent. And if that means at some point coming back and looking at the bylaw and regulations that create the framework for this, I'm all for doing that. But I just could not let this go by, given my knowledge of that area. Thank you.
So Councillor Trussow, just in regard to the language of the motion, right now it is just going to read with a report back to a future meeting of the Corporate Services Committee and no date set. So I want to make sure, first of all, that you're okay with leaving that open to staff to determine when they are able to bring that back.
Or council, if staff feels they want to bring this directly to the council table, but the problem with that is then we're doing committee work at council. I'd prefer to see this come back to the next Corporate Services Committee, but if staff feels this can go directly to the council table, I'm not opposed to that. So I would just leave that even more open, Corporate Services or council.
Okay.
It's up to them.
I'm just going to check in with Ms. Livingston. I saw some conferring happening there with staff. So Ms. Livingston?
Through you, Chair, from a staff perspective, we would prefer to follow the standard process, take the necessary time to do the reach out, engage in discussions, and bring it back to the earliest Corporate Services Committee meeting that we can get to.
Thank you for that clarification.
Then I'll leave that with, as she just said. Thank you.
Okay. So with that slight change, we'll see if there's any further debate on the motion to refer. And I'm seeing no hands up this time. So we'll get the clerk to open the vote on that.
Closing the vote, the referral is passed 3-2.
Thank you, colleagues. Moving on, we have no scheduled items on the agenda. We have 2 items for direction. There are 2 proclamation issuance applications. We can deal with these individually, or we can deal with them together. I'm in committee's hands. Councillor Trussow.
Building on what you told us at the last meeting about the requirements, I do have a question about the second one. I think the first one is pretty straightforward, but I do not see a local contact on the second one. And if I missed something, please point that out to me, because I support what they're doing in principle.
Thank you, Councillor Trussow. And if committee will allow me just a little bit of leeway to share, because this is a concern I always have as well. But I did note in the application that the clerks provided to us that although the submission was from a provincial coordinator, it was on behalf of the 30 clubs that exist in London today. So I hope that little bit of clarification, does that answer your question, Councillor?
It does, especially if you're satisfied, because you raised this important point at the last meeting.
So we'll look to see if there is a mover for 4.1 and 4.2 together then. Moved by Councillor Stevenson and seconded by Councillor McAllister. And we will open the vote on that momentarily.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed 5-0.
Thank you, colleagues. We have no deferred matters or additional business that I've been made aware of. So that moves us to item 6 on the agenda, which is our confidential session. And we will need to first pass a motion to move in camera. Moved by Councillor Stevenson and seconded by Councillor Trussow. And we'll open the vote on that.
Closing passed 5-0.
All right, colleagues, we will just need a couple of moments to make sure that the appropriate individuals are in the room and the rest of the room is cleared, and then we will resume with our confidential package. All right, colleagues, we are resuming public session of the third meeting of the Corporate Services Committee, and I will just call on Vice Chair Trussow to report out from our closed session.
Thank you, through the chair and to the clerk. The third meeting of the Corporate Services Committee on January 30th, 2023, heard a number of confidential items that were placed on the agenda under number 6, be it 6.1 through 6.7. Each and every one was heard by members of this committee, and substantial progress was made on each one of these matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Trussow. And all that is left, colleagues, is looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Stevenson. I like those quick hands, Councillor. Moved, seconded by Councillor McAllister. And by hand, all those in favor. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.